we'd love to know where exactly you're joining from. We've got an interactive map up on the screen just here. If you just type your location into the chat, and you'll see where you're from right now is being plotted right on the map. So I'm joining from the UK. I'm going to pop in the map. Just there, you see it lights up. So if you've just joined us, pop your location into the chat, and we'll see where people are joining us from today. So the UK, we've got the east coast of the US.
It's really cool to be able to see.
Baltimore as well. I think if you zoom in on the east coast as well, Tatiana, you'll be able to see.
Yes, we can see who's joining from my side of the world here with us today.
Yes.
And then Peter, there's where we are right now and where we wish we were right now. So those two things could be different answers.
Of course.
Looks like we don't have any. Oh, no. This little gray dot, does that mean somebody's in San Francisco, or is just marking those areas?
I think someone said no, no one said San Francisco. That's
okay. I see. So we have San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, and then a bunch of us up here in the New York, New Jersey area.
Yeah, a lot of representation from the East Coast.
We have on the other side of the world as well. Got some people in England, so welcome.
Got 2 people from the UK, yes.
And then looks like India. So we got people in India. Hello. And we have
Japan. I think that was Tina testing Japan out just there.
Okay,
Definitely don't have someone from Japan. It would be really cool if we did.
Awesome.
Okay. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm delighted to be able to introduce Tatiana. For those of you that don't follow her on LinkedIn, I strongly suggest you go over it and do it. It's really unlike any other LinkedIn feed that I follow. Some of the recent highlights have included a blooper reel where she made a video recording and then took out all the bloopers, and that was quite funny. A more recent one was you, Tatiana, scooting around in the grocery store, which looked like a lot of fun. When she's not teaching at Rutgers as an adjunct professor, Tatiana goes exploring new cities or likes to tear up the dance floor. But I think with your recent foot injury, that activity might be out of bounds for now, if I'm not wrong. Luckily, no dance moves are required for this session. So over to you, Tatiana.
Thank you so much. This is not required, but more than welcome. If anybody does want to do, a little happy dance, more than happy to experience that with you. So, welcome. You're in the right place if you are ready to discuss conquering our virtual stage fright. And thank you, Peter, for that introduction. Yes, we've all got crazy things going on in our lives. I'm sure if that we each took turns, maybe we could do that as an interaction one day. What crazy thing do you have going on in your life right now? We'd all have a lot to say. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us today, especially if this is a super busy time or super busy season for you. I know it is for me, but I'm glad that we're here together because we have some important conversations to have today. And for those of you that like a little bit of structure, here is the plan that we're going to address in the next 54 minutes. First, I want to start with what is the problem. And you guys know I'm a professor, so I like structure. I like teaching frameworks. We're going to start with identifying what is the problem here. And I want to get some input from you on that. Then we can talk about the cause or causes of those problems. And my favorite part, being able to talk about a bunch of solutions that are going to help you take steps forward to prevent having these issues, right? These concerns, the things that are holding you back. So let's start with the problem. I'm curious to ask you guys, what would you say, and I'm going to set up an interaction here. So when you see me turning, you know that I'm setting up interactions on another screen, but what problem do you think, in your own words, I'm going to share how I view it, but in your own words, type in the chat here in Zoom, what do you see as the problem. What problem can you identify that you'd like for us to talk about today? So again, the nice thing with Stream Alive, as you know, is we do not have to leave the Zoom chat or whatever space we're in. You can just type in your answers right in there. So in your own words, what's the problem that we're here to address? Okay, and we'll see transient thoughts coming up here. There are butterflies in your stomach, being comfortable presenting. Absolutely, right? Both of those things. Being confident on camera, 100%. Feeling too self-conscious, lack track of, what was that one? Losing track of my train of thought, feeling too self-conscious. Yes, thank you, Angela. Thank you, JP. See your comments coming in there. Yeah, there's feeling self-conscious and then there's feeling too self-conscious, right, JP? Being conscious of saying and ah, so those annoying filler words or filler sounds that exist in all languages. I am bilingual. I speak English and Spanish. I took French in high school. Every single language has filler words. Saying the wrong thing, Tina, yeah, that's a pretty common one too. All right, well, thank you everybody for sharing those things. I mean, the big problem that we're here to address is having virtual stage fright. And I just want to say before we launch into it, there's virtual and then there's face to face. And are there differences? Yes and no. So face to face is a different experience than presenting virtually, but we're still presenting to people, right? There's still verbal and nonverbal skills that go into it. There's still all these things that play into our mind. So they can be applied across the board, but we are here today to specifically discuss the camera, the technology, the devices that don't necessarily come into play when we present in a face-to-face environment. Even though there may still be cameras, it's different because we're looking directly at people, right? Rather than in a virtual world. So there are some key differences. So we're going to focus on that as our problem. Next, I would like to talk about what the cause of those things are. So when you think about cause, in your own mind, whatever it is, that fear that's holding you back, what could be causing that? And just take a moment in silence. I'm not going to ask you to type it in the chat or anything, but in your own heart and in your own mind, what are the cause or causes of this thing that prevents you from delivering your message with confidence, with clarity, to actually doing it with confidence? I have a feeling that it is a variation of one word for all of us. The specifics may differ, the circumstances may differ, but at the end of the day, I'm going to call on the wisdom of Yoda. And the quote that I love from him is that we have to first name the fear. And I don't do a great Yoda accent. If anybody does, please unmute, and I'd love for you to read this quote. But here it is in my way of speaking. Named must your fear be before banish it you can. Right? Oh, Peter volunteers Tina for the Yoda accent. Are you ready, Tina? I love how Peter starts cracking up laughing. He volunteers you. All right, I'll give it a try. Ready? Named must your fear be before banish it you can. It wasn't terrible. Wasn't terrible, guys. You got to give me credit for at least trying. But the takeaway here is that, and it comes in the world of psychology too, you have to name it to tame it. And I love Yoda, but I prefer the word tame rather than banish it, because the truth that we all have to accept is that we might never be able to fully banish fear. It might always be in the back of your mind. But the key message, so if you don't hear anything I say for the rest of the time, here is the key message I want you to remember. You can do what you need to do and present yourself confidently on camera, even if you're afraid. It is normal to feel that fear. That doesn't have to stop you. Okay, so if you've got to run, that's the main message. But if you can stay, we're going to unpack this a little bit more in detail. So, fear is the cause. Now, again, your specific types of fear could be totally different. What the fear for me is going to be different than the fear for you. So let's try another little another little exercise here, and you have to forgive me because I just laugh at myself sometimes because I know what I'm about to ask you, and some of you may not like this, but this is just a scenario here. Type in our chat here in Zoom. If I said to you, you are going to go live online in 24 hours, what's the first word that comes to mind for you? You're going live in 24 hours. JP, Rishikesh, Duncan, I have you on the scene here. I see Michelle, I see Romy, Sweeta. What words come to mind? Okay. Help, no, wow, prepare. Interesting. So you went into solution mode there. Oof. Yeah. It, breathe, says Michelle. Nice one. Very good. Okay. Yes. All of these words are going to come up for us, right? So I want you to remember that feeling, that situation, those emotions that come up, and we have to get you may have heard this before, but this is, I think, a piece of wisdom for all the ages. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is just the bottom line, right? We need to know, hey, comfort is not the goal here. Growth is the goal here. Sharing a message is the goal here. Communicating with others, connecting, that's the goal. If we're never, I mean, here's the example for me in my own life. I'm not particularly crazy about strength training, right? I'm definitely not comfortable when I'm doing it. But if I want the results as I age, I'm 47, if I want to maintain healthy muscles, I've got to go through that discomfort. That's just the way it is. I may never love it, but I know the value and I have to do it. So maybe you are like me and you absolutely love public speaking. Maybe this is your thing. However, maybe you never will love it. That doesn't mean you can't be great at it, even if it's not comfortable for you. So I hope we can make those distinctions. Now, as we talk about the causes and the things that are involved in this for us, I do want to address some key terms here. And one of those terms, so when we look at fear and confidence and all that, we have to think of it on a spectrum. Something that I learned from a photographer and psychologist back in the days when I did photography and video professionally is that our self-esteem is not a thermometer where like our body temperature where I can just say 98.6, my self-esteem is great. Our self-esteem has different layers to it. There's the global self-esteem, which is like on a general basis, how do I feel about myself and my sense of worthiness and belonging in the world, right? So in general, maybe that's pretty good for most of us. But there's also another type of self-esteem that is called task self-esteem. So you put me in front of a group of people and my task is to share a great message about communication. I feel pretty good about that, right? My task related self-esteem is pretty high. If you put me in a room with people who are about to take apart an engine of a car and I have to show them how to do that and put it back together, my self-esteem goes much lower because I don't know how to do that, right? So you might feel presenting virtually is like the car engine for me because you just don't know how to do it. But there are ways to learn how to do that. So just keep in mind that your self-esteem right now at a particular task, whether it's being confident in our camera or navigating the technology, whatever the fear is, you can up your skills in time, right? But we have to know this about our self-esteem, that it is not just a one thing. The other type is situational. So for example, if you're an introverted person, you may not love coming to a party in person where all of us are chatting together and maybe even doing some dancing, Peter. Maybe there's actually some dancing. Maybe that situation makes you uncomfortable. So maybe just the act of being in a virtual space and turning your camera on makes you uncomfortable. Like, you see how many of us have our cameras on today versus how many of us don't, right? And there's no pressure to do that here. But these are just things I want you to start to learn and become aware of in yourself. What feelings come up? I also want to share that because I was a professional photographer and videographer for a long time, I know that having a camera pointed at someone can feel very intimidating because it is all eyes on me. It is all eyes on you when these kinds of things happen. But again, we come back to that same principle. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the other key message is we may never really be comfortable, and that's okay. But we have to identify what is it that's holding us back. So, would anybody like to unmute and come on the screen with me and just share what is it? Is there something that you want to say that's holding you back? Again, there's no pressure to do this, but would anybody like to unmute and share some of the fear-based thinking that comes into play when you're about to present? I'll give everybody a few seconds to see if they're willing to share that, but just let me know.
Hey, Tatiana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi. So, I actually don't understand. I have done some analysis on it, but I don't understand. So when I'm talking, there are a lot of ahs and oohs in the middle of the statement, and I constantly lose my chain of thoughts. There are some people in this meeting who have talked to me, and they understand. They also must have seen. But whenever I'm talking, I constantly lose my chain of thoughts, and this does not happen in like normal scenario. Only on when I am having conversation through Zoom or Google Meet or similar tools.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first question is, if you're constantly losing your train of thought, is it because you're distracted, or is it still happening even when you're focused?
No, so what happens is, because since I have a lot of things to say, uh, I think that the main problem is that I get distracted. That while I'm talking about this, I might forget the other thing that I have to talk about. So I
Mm-hmm.
always keep a note of things which I have to talk about, but still I keep losing the chain of thoughts.
Gotcha. And so maybe, is it possible that you're wanting to share more content that then will fit in the time frame? So for example, all of us together here today, we have 60 minutes. I can't bring 3 hours of content. My classes at the university are all at least 3 hours long. I can't fit that into our session today. Is it possible that you're trying to put in too much in too small of a time frame?
Yeah, I think that can be one of the reasons.
You're already doing what I would suggest is outlining the key points, but perhaps in some situations, like in a virtual environment or a virtual session, maybe you need to chunk it down and say, I can't talk about these 10 things in one session. I can talk about two. And then you can really focus in on those two things. So it could just be a time distribution, allotting enough time for each of those things to be meaningful. Because sometimes you guys have probably seen this when you're in a presentation mode and somebody's rushing, and at the end they say, I'm just going to go through all these slides quickly because we're running out of time. Then it just takes away from the quality, because at the end of the day, here's the truth, guys. And I wasn't going to talk about this today, but here we are. Dr. Carmen Simon, who's a neuroscientist, and talks a lot about what makes things memorable and the ability for us to remember things. At the end of the day, according to her research and the research on the brain, most of us can only remember about 10% of what anybody tells us. So think about that, Rishikesh. When you're sharing a message, people are really only going to be able to remember 10%. That's just to begin with. So all that extra stuff is not essential. And it is important to repeat some of our key messages. Even today, I've already said more than once, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You may never be comfortable. Identify what's holding you back. Identify that fear, because that's my 10% message. Those are the things when this session is done that I want you guys to remember. So my suggestion, without being able to dive deeper than that is my partner, and he's comfortable with me sharing this. He has ADD, so he has a lot of those issues where focus is a bit difficult, and he wants to talk quickly because he doesn't want to forget. But like at the end of the day, it's okay if you forget a few things as long as you're still sharing something of value, and you can always come back to those things as well. So those are a few tips, and thank you so much for sticking your neck out there and being willing to unmute and chat with us today. Because the point is, we want to make this very real to our lives, right? I'm here to help you make a difference, have a difference in your life when it comes to virtually presenting and losing some of that fear or transforming it. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, coming back over to our little spectrum here, there is, so we'll go from green to red, right? So green could be a person who, you know, they just absolutely love virtual presenting. Like they feel pretty good in this space. Most people don't live up in that green zone. Most people aren't like, yay, going live in 24 hours. Most people are like, oh my gosh. And they're running around like crazy. I got to do this meeting. I have to run this activity. I don't know what to do. And I'm juggling 3 screens and multiple programs. And how do I get Stream Live up? And what if I do it wrong? How do I manage the integrations and all the fun? There's just a lot. That is the truth. There is a lot to this. However, it's normal. It is completely normal to have nervousness. So then I would say, you know, most human beings feel pretty nervous. Then as we go down, then we've got the people who start to feel scared, but can make it happen. Then as we go down here, then people start to get, you know, this becomes harder. People start to panic. And then we have at the other extreme, we have people who have real phobias, you know, that would require the help of a counselor, that would require mental health intervention. And I want to share with you all that as teaching at the university, I have had to deal with people who have social anxiety. This is a big fear. I have had students, actually I should say only 2. So of all the students, which are, I don't know, probably getting close to 2,000 students now, 2 people have truly not been able to continue, but I was able to get them to work on it and come back and try again and move past that discomfort. Most students, it is just overcoming the nervousness. But there really are phobias to address, and I'm curious, and some of you in the audience may have heard this before, especially if you've ever heard me talk before, but this term here, it's one word, but I'm going to just put it in 2 lines. Glossophobia. Glossophobia is the fear of public speaking, the fear of presenting in public, whether it's virtually or face-to-face. That is the term, right? So I want you to walk away learning a new word today, glossophobia. It is a real thing. But then there's also extreme phobias, right? So just want to know, hey, if that's you and that social anxiety part, it's truly preventing you and it's more than just nervousness, please seek out a person that can help you with that, right? There's counseling for that. There's treatments for that. But I know most of us live in this like nervous, scared place. And that's really what we want to be able to address a little bit further today. So there is such a thing as glossophobia. But I also want to say that for us here, some of the stuff we might be facing is more along the lines of screenophobia, right? Where it's a screen. This is a screen, and somehow, some way, this camera, this piece of glass, this piece of metal, plastic, whatever it's made out of, scares the crap out of us when it's time for us to present. So I want to play a little trivia game with you guys, and I want to ask you a question. But before that, I just want to read, Tina, I think you asked, what are the names of the phobias? The glossophobia? Repeat that one. Yeah, glosso, Glosso phobia. Glossophobia. Glosso meaning tongue. Phobia, the fear. So it's not like you're scared of your tongue. You're scared of what your tongue can do. So that's glossophobia. And then, Peter, when you're talking unscripted in front of an audience, you're focused on worrying what to say. But if you read from a script, you know that you're being robotic. Yes. And so to me, there are people, Peter, that can talk from a script and they sound completely natural. There are groups, one of my brothers is an actor. He can take a script and it sounds like the words are coming straight from his heart. Most of us are not that talented in that area, but that's okay because there is a medium here, a happy medium, which is start with the script, move to an outline, and present from an outline with bullet points. But that means you're going to be prepared. That means you're familiar with the content. You can't really do that if you're not familiar with the content. But an outline with bullet points helps navigate that. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing those comments. Okay, now I did want to ask you guys a brain question here. And we can just do this like old school style, just asking a direct question. But let me just see here. How much do you believe our adult brain weighs? What do you think is the correct answer here? Is it 3/4 of a pound or 340 grams? Or is it 1.5 pounds or 680 grams? C, 3 pounds, 1360, or 5 pounds, about 2268 grams. What do you guys think? A, B, C, or D is the correct answer. Give everybody a chance to respond. Yeah, I see Manish, Sonu, JP, Duncan, Maria, Angela. All right, so we got your answer, and the correct answer is, in fact, on average, about 3 pounds. Right? Some of us may have heavier brains, some of us may have lighter brains, but on the average, our adult brain weighs only about 3 pounds. So isn't it crazy to think that this 3-pound thing inside of our skull can prevent us from doing the things that we want to do because of our thoughts and our mindset? So really, really important for us to understand that this is part of being human. We just have some things that we all need to work on. But again, feeling fear does not have to stop you. Feeling fear is normal. It's a part of our human experience. So we talked a bit, what's the problem, right? Our virtual stage fright. What causes that? But now we want to focus on the solution because the cause is going to be individual for each one of us. But 99% of the time it's based in some fear. And I will just say, it is a fear of being judged negatively. None of us are afraid if we're being judged positively. Because if you guys like my presentation today, that's still a judgment. It's just one that I'm happy with, right? I would not be pleased if you guys think that I'm terrible at presenting, right? Doesn't feel good. But there still might be some truth in that. There could still be some things that I know I need to work on. So for yourself, whatever that is, whether it's fear of the technology, whether it's fear of being seen, whether it's fear of being judged for something physical, which is a very real thing. And I will acknowledge with you all, because I've done a lot of healing from this, is when I did photography and video for other people, I created my own videos to share about my business, and they have never seen the light of day because I did not like the way that I looked in the video. Specifically, I did not like how heavy I thought I looked in the video. So I allowed some distorted body image issues to prevent me from showing up on camera. But at some point, and again, for me, I did do a lot of work to be able to get past that point. But, sometimes the fear is just, I don't have all the right technology. But I want to show you, this is my first live stream that I ever did. I didn't have the technology that I have now. I didn't have the microphone. I didn't have the lighting. I didn't have the camera. I didn't have the studio space in my home. I was in a small room, in a corner, with a webcam, and not great lighting, which is key. I know lighting is key. But I just want to say to you, I still delivered what I thought was a valuable workshop it was on being a leader when you're not the boss, was the topic. So when you are, if you get into the trap of comparing yourself, sometimes we're comparing unfairly. And there's an expression, I forget who said it, but you can't compare your backstage to somebody's final performance. It's not the same thing. If you're going to compare yourself to someone, go back and look at their very first video, which is why I wanted to share my first live pictures with you. Like, they're not bad, but they're not what they are now, but we can evolve. But that still was enough to deliver a great message that the people who signed up for that content were happy to have. So, just a reminder, just a little reminder. So again, coming back to our solution. What is it that we can do about it? And I want to share about 10 different things that we can do, but the first thing I want to share is a mindset shift. And in order to prepare us for that mindset shift, I want you to think about people in your life that you consider heroes. You know, we all had them as kids. So all of us probably looked up to some action figure or cartoon or movie or actor or even a real person in our lives. But I just want you to think about who is someone that you admire, whose speaking skills, communication, engagement skills you admire significantly. So this would be, you know, a hero in your own world. And I'm going to ask you to pop it into the Zoom chat because I want us to be able to view this together here. So we'll show everybody's comments coming in. So we have people like Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Steve Jobs coming in as people that we admire. Martin Luther King. Your mom. Yes, like we have very real people in life. We're not may or may your mom may be famous. I'm not sure, but for most of us, you know, we're people in our own circles. Hey, Lux got a nomination here too. Awesome. Richard Branson. Yeah, and you guys can see Elon Musk is coming up as well. You guys can see that it's fairly easy to come up with people whose work we admire from a community. I have my professional crushes as well. You know, lots of people whose communication style I think is absolutely amazing and so enjoyable. So thinking about those people, Lux, Deadpool. Did any of you guys see that commercial with Deadpool and Wolverine and the beer commercial? I was like, what? Maybe I'm getting old. I'm like, that commercial makes no sense to me. Let's see. Mario. We have a nomination for Mario. JP says you have to go. No problem. Thank you. Good to see you. Bye. Okay, so you were able to identify who these people are. Now, next question I want to ask is, what's one trait? Just think of one trait. What is it about them that you admire? What is it? You know, what is it? Could it be their charisma? Could it be their knowledge? Could it be their humanity, their vulnerability, their connection, their humor? That's one thing I admire in other people is being able to be funny. So we're going to do, okay, so we've got candor, right? Candor coming in. Very nice. Content and passion. Yes. The way that they're captivating, the way they captivate people. Self-assured, problem solving, being relatable, confidence, able to answer a question with ease, simplicity. Very good. And I will bet money that if we were to ask any single one of these people if they feel nervous before they present, before they speak, I'm sure that almost everyone will say yes. And even if they say no because they're more comfortable with it now, I bet you they went through it for many years. So again, these are people just like us, right? There's not huge distinctions here. By the way, I read somewhere that Martin Luther King got a C in public speaking, believe it or not. I didn't fact check that. That's just what I read. So I was like, huh, interesting, kind of strange. So again, you think about those heroes. Think about the qualities in them that you admire. But we can't only think about that. We actually, every superhero story has a villain or multiple villains as well. So we also need to think about in our own mind, who are those villains? Who are those villains that get in our way? So, for yourself, what are those limiting beliefs, those limiting thoughts that get in our way? So, in cartoons growing up, you know, the villains, they're so easy to identify because they're so bad. They're just evil. In our own mind, that becomes a lot harder to identify because it sounds like us. But my personal belief is that those thoughts that hold us back, that keep us stuck, or we're comparing, or we feel like we don't belong, or we don't have a message to share. I think that those things are just they're not from our true self, and we can, you know, debate spirituality where we actually think they come from on a different day. But yes, like Angela is saying here, it's a lot of negative self-talk. I call it an inner critic. One strategy for me is I gave my inner critic a name, a name, to be able to separate that. Hey, okay, this is my inner critic getting really loud right now, and I don't want to hear it. Right? Being able to separate that from a thought that I have to believe. So, for yeah, and Rishikesh, a fear of embarrassment. Right, right. Again, that's back to that negative judgment of others. We fear other people not liking us, not thinking we're good enough, not thinking good thoughts about us. So here are some of the thoughts that come up a lot in with my students and with people when we're doing trainings and workshops. You don't look good enough. You don't belong here. Who would ever listen to you? You're not smart enough, or you are not blank enough. Right? That this is just a common thread that unfortunately trips so many of us up as we're trying to do this. But again, we're not going to stay stuck in problems. We're actually going to focus on our solutions. So, what can we do about this? Well, when it comes to solutions, key things that we need to do. We absolutely need to think in steps. And I'm going to give you a lot of steps. Some may work for you, some may not. You might not be ready for all of them. That's okay. This is what we need to do to move forward. The first thing I think is that we have to use that fear as a discovery tool. So thinking more like a detective, more like a researcher, like, what is going on here? Just taking a step back. No judgment, like, I shouldn't think that. What's wrong with me? Rather just like, where is this coming from? What is this really about? My favorite question is, what's really going on here? That helps me with my own introspection. Then we have Tim Ferriss has a TED Talk, and then I'm putting the link to the blog here. If you just look up Tim Ferriss fear setting, here are the steps that I find very valuable, which are to, number one, you got to make your fears tangible. So again, this is back to that Yoda wisdom, labeling them, identifying them. Mental health professionals agree. And we might even need to write them down. If journaling and writing things is helpful for you, this is a great tool. Then the second step of this is of fear setting. So he's talking about, rather than goal setting, fear setting. Step 2, study those who have been successful and look for the real stories, because everybody faces obstacles. Every person that you guys mentioned as someone you look up to has faced mega obstacles. And frankly, not all of them are super nice, awesome people either, right? Steve Jobs, who was an amazing visionary and completely changed our world, wasn't known as a really kind person, was not known as a kind person to work with. So, like I said, we all have things we can work on. But so secondly, ask yourself this question: has anyone else in all of time, less intelligent, less driven, or with fewer resources than me, been able to figure this out? And thank you. Lux put in the chat the link to that TED Talk. So if you guys want to check that out, I recommend it. Do want to prime you that he does share a lot of vulnerability and struggles that he had when he was in college. But it's a great talk. So studying those people who've been successful. The third one is, let's have a look conservatively. What would happen if we did take a risk? What would the benefits be to our life, even if it's partial success? So if you did go live, or if you did record that video, or you did take the lead on that presentation, what good might come from it into your life, even if you do it slowly over time in parts. Maybe you could co host with someone rather than having to do it solo the first time, for example. Number four is determining the cost of inaction. What happens if I don't do this? What am I going to feel like in 6 months from now? What could my career be like 1 year from now if I don't do this? And think about, what if the people you admired never took a step forward? And they never, what if Steve Jobs never did a presentation? What if Martin Luther King never gave a speech? Right? So think about that. So we talked about using fear as discovery. The second is we have to take the time to feel, because here's a key thing I hope you remember. We feel before we think as human beings. Information hits the emotional parts of our brain before the logical parts, and that's just the way we're designed. So when you're feeling all crazy, and I use crazy very lightly, right? I don't mean that literally, of course, just a term, but when we feel all out of sorts about something, you have to know that happens. That's okay. So giving yourself time to process those emotions so that you can get to a more logical place. The next solution is to ask yourself, what's the larger force in all this? What's bigger than my fear? So for yourselves, I'm curious, what is bigger than your fear? What is something that for you, Lux, maybe I can ask you, for yourself, for you and Tina, you're founding this company, and I believe you guys had also founded it with Joe. What was the reason behind doing it? What was your why? We are going to do this even though we have all these obstacles and unknowns. Why are we going to launch Stream Alive?
Wow. I think it was the why was personally being ignored in a whole bunch of live sessions where couldn't participate as much as I might want to or others might. And once there were double digit number of people in the room, it was just like the default was most people were ignored. So seeing that one to many conversations are broken, and it's not rooted in human nature. Like I wouldn't ask you a question and then ignore your answer, but we were doing that in large group settings. So I guess that is one element of the why. um I've actually introspected a little bit about it in after the fact, and my grandfather was one of the first public speaking teachers in South India in the 70s. And he used to keep talking about how it's important to have a conversation to the extent possible. So maybe that's a residual back there as well. I don't know the full answer, but I think these two kind of point to it in some ways, at least for me.
Shout out to educators, especially public speaking ones, right? That's awesome. That's so you come, so it's in your blood. That's really good. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is that larger force for me? What's the thing that when I'm feeling afraid, when I'm feeling nervous, when I'm tired of it, what's going to move us forward? All right. I want to help other people feel included, Lux, or if I can rephrase what you're saying. And then, see, we have a comment in the chat from Romy. How about remembering myself along the way? I already had overcome thought life. Romy, if you could say a little bit more about that, I'd be happy to answer the question. I'm just not clear what you mean. I know what you mean about remembering yourself, but just share a little bit more so I can get a little clarity on that, and then I can address that. And then Peter says, what I like is that it lets textroverts like me participate in sessions like this without putting myself on the spotlight. It's easier to chat and participate. Yeah, and that is one of the unique factors of our virtual world. That doesn't happen if we're in a group together sitting around tables, right? People don't just hold up a sign with a message on it that we all just read, right? It is different. It is one of the benefits. And I have friends that are textroverts as well, Peter, and you're right. It's a different way of engaging. That's why I never in my classes discourage chat among my students, because part of my goal is also to build connection within the class, with each other, the students to connect with other students. So that's my mentality with that. Okay, so we're at number 3, choosing a larger force. Let's head over to the next one, which is, remember those heroes, those people that we talked about? One of my heroes in the world of photography was this Australian dude named Jerry Guionis. I think he was originally Greek, but then lived in Australia. So when I was maybe struggling a bit creatively at a, say, a wedding or a business, I'd be like, what would Jerry Guionis do? Because he's like, to me, he was like the master of all photography. I mean, he is an amazing, amazing, amazing creative. Like, if I was Jerry, what would Jerry do? And that helps me think more creative. So I want to ask you, when you're in those situations of fear, like, what would your hero do? And not just that, because I want it to be more about us too. What would the best me do? So WWHD, what would my hero do? And then WWBMD, what would best me do? Right? So you're your best self, you're feeling great. What would the best version of you do in that moment? So again, these are just some tips to help you think of things as we navigate this. Then we have this concept of accept and expect. And here's what I mean by this. You know, for some of us, we have this mentality of like, we have to kill our fears, destroy, crush them. And if that's the approach that works for you, that's okay. I'm not bashing that. I just want you to know that's not the only approach. I have a brother who's was in the military as a personal trainer, and he has trained thousands of people with that drill sergeant mentality. But that doesn't work for me. So for me, that's not the approach that works. So thinking about like, crush my fears, kill them, destroy them, it doesn't help me, because at the end of the day, I still have the fears. For me, what helps is this other mentality of, hey, I need to accept that I'm going to feel fear. And in fact, I'm going to expect it. I know that I'm going to get butterflies in my stomach. I know that I'm going to start to feel a little heart palpitations. For some of my students, they start to feel sweaty hands, or they feel their legs moving around a lot. So for me, accept and expect really works, because when it happens, like, oh yes, I know what's happening. I know why I've got this crazy feeling in my stomach. I'm nervous. I care about what I'm doing. This thing matters to me. Number 6, we have to be able to laugh at ourselves. Like, we can't always just be so super serious about this stuff. And we have to be okay with embarrassing ourselves sometime. Right? So like, let's just say I pressed the wrong button and all of a sudden my screen just went haywire. I would be embarrassed, but I would just have to say like, whoops, I made a mistake. Let me just get us back on track. Give me 5 seconds and try to keep it going, right? I would feel embarrassed, but so what? So is it the end of the world to feel embarrassed or to make a mistake? No. I hope that if I make a mistake on this, and by the way, I already have made a mistake, but I would hope you wouldn't all just be like, that's it, I'm out of here. I never want to hear from Tatiana Rodriguez again. I hope she never talks to me. I never want to, forget it. I'm canceling the LinkedIn connect request. Can't stand her. We don't think that way about other people. And yet we think everybody's going to think that way about us if we make one little tiny mistake. So laughter and embarrassment. And one of the ways I do it in my classes, I have my students create fear memes early on in the semester. They can take, a famous image and just make it relevant to their public speaking fear. So here's some of the ones my students have made. When you forget how to speak when 25 people are in front of you, because our classes are 25 students. And I know we have a lot more than 25 here with us today at some point. But the second part is, you can't forget your speech if you never write it. The class 1 hour later, after I finally finished the intro to my speech, right? So some of us like go on and on and on. What I have planned for my speech, what I have said during my speech, right? This goes back, Rishikesh, we were talking earlier about quantity. So, it's just, this is a great activity, creating some memes, or just being a little bit lighter, more thoughtful, more playful about our content, and then embarrassing yourself daily. Like, get used to, you're just going to embarrass yourself sometimes. That's just the way it goes in life. It doesn't have to stop us from moving forward. I'm glad you guys like the memes. Yes, you feel free to share those. Just say that they're from Tatiana's public speaking students, and we're good. So this next is a multi-step strategy. There's a podcast from Jay Shetty that I listen to called 8 Scientifically Proven Ways to Stay Motivated Before You Get Off Track When Things Get Tough. So it's a really long podcast name, but 8 Scientifically Proven Ways to Stay Motivated Before You Get Off Track When Things Get Tough. And this, he talked about there are 3 kinds of people that we need in our life when we lose motivation: caring people, challenging people, and encouraging people. So here's what they are. This is my paraphrasing of them, because for me to remember them, I had to do it like this. So the 3 kinds of people we need. Number 1, we need our hug people. These are the people who are going to give us a hug when things aren't right. These are our nurturers. These are our caring people. So that first type of person, that hug person. Then the second one is our honest people. And these are the people who are going to tell us the truth, even if it's hard, even if we're in the wrong, even if we don't see it. They will just be forthcoming. And then the third type is our hype people. So these are the people that will motivate us to stop complaining, to get up off the couch and do something. These are those encouragers. Sometimes it can be like a person like we have a healthy competition with. Key thing here is that it would be ideal if we could have one friend that was all 3 of these things. They're going to hug us, they're going to be honest with us, and they're going to hype us up. But probably there'll be different people in our lives. So just knowing that we need these different kinds of people is really helpful. Number 10 is we have to build confidence. But I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what confidence means. So I want to share that these words, confido, translate to with trust. With trust, right? This is the meaning of confidence. So if we're going to build confidence, we have to think about trust as well. And there are so many things that we can do to build up that confidence in our lives. One of them is to not leave out the spiritual side of our lives, whether that's meditation or prayer or visualization, relaxation, and breathing. Like these kinds of things matter in our practice here. Then you all know this stuff, right? Exercise, sleep, nutrition. We have to take good care of ourselves to be our best selves when we're presenting. But I also know that when I'm excited to present, I'm probably not going to get a ton of sleep the night before. It's just the way it is. It's almost like when I travel, I never sleep the night before. I'm too excited. But in general, having these healthy habits. Then it's the environmental comforts, especially in a virtual world. We may need some things in our environment that bring us a level of comfort. Maybe it's a picture. Maybe it's putting a little something above your camera so you know to make eye contact with the lens there. Right? That's one of the nonverbal things that will help us build confidence, is looking at the camera lens, not at the screen, to mimic natural eye contact. So again, what kind of things can you put in your virtual environment that are for you? It's not the stuff that's going to be shown on the screen, but the environmental comforts for you, things that make you feel good. Sometimes for me, I was talking with Tina and Lux when we were behind the scenes earlier today, like, I really want my hair to look good when I present. That helps me, right? That helps me feel better. So maybe for you, it's also your hair. Or I like things to smell nice. I like the lighting to be a certain way, a particular piece of art for you. Like just thinking about your environmental comforts is important in creating confidence when you're presenting. Then we have, of course, to prepare the content. This is just a basic. You have to be prepared, right? I didn't just pull this all up out of my head and say, so you know what, I'm just going to do this presentation today and I'm just going to wing it. No, but I allow for naturalness because I'm familiar with the content, but I have my structure, what I want to say, because it shows that I respect your time enough to prepare something that I think is good and not just scatterbrained. So then you also, once you do this, you have to watch yourself back. Record yourself doing this and watch it back. Nothing will help give you more feedback than watching a recording. I just want to caution you that it can be a little hard at first. It's not always pleasant to watch yourself back. But maybe you could do it like a like one of those watch together, like a when you watch things together online with a friend, say, "Hey, could you watch this with me and give me some feedback?" Again, those honest people that will tell us the truth, but in a gentle, loving way, knowing that they have our growth in mind. Now you might be thinking like, "What? Record myself? I'm not ready for that." It's okay. You don't have to go live right away. You can do simulations. You can practice all of this without ever going public. On any YouTube channel, you can live stream privately or unlisted. Privately means only you as the owner of that channel can ever see it. Unlisted means only the people whom you share that link with will be able to see it. So you can go live, just change it to public, go unlisted or totally private if if it's just for you. But there are ways to do that. So remember, go live unlisted. You can go live without sharing with the whole world as you're building your muscles. Nobody flies a plane without doing simulations first. So if that helps you, you can do that as well. Also, I think knowing your energy level. So for example, like my energy levels are so much higher during the day that whenever I can, I much prefer to do daytime sessions rather than nighttime sessions. So just if you can ever help it, consider your energy levels as well. Don't fall into the comparison trap, right? I can't be Lux. I can't be Tina. I can't be Peter. I can't be Michelle or Manish. I can only be me, right? I'm not an actor. I'm just myself here. Comparing is not helpful. I have a friend, Saeed. He's been on Stream Alive before. He has a great sense of, I don't even know how on earth he comes up with the funny stuff that he says and posts about. But I'm not trying to be him, but I can be inspired by him. And he does inspire me to create things that are a little more outside the box. Even the compliment, Peter, that you paid me that my content is unique on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, thank you so much, Peter. Right? Little things like that. So don't fall into that comparison trap, but be inspired by other people in your circles. And we have to be able to give ourselves a little bit more grace when it comes to our mistakes and our learning periods, and make it perfectly okay to make a mistake. And I do this in my class with my students to let them know it's okay to make a mistake. This is a training ground. It's a learning environment. And even if it wasn't, what is so bad about making a mistake? Right? People are unless it's giant and we're responsible for things, it is highly unlikely that anyone will ever just stop talking to us. So we're talking about confidence, how to build it. I also need to mention the word courage, because this will be my final thought, and then we'll kick it back to a little bit more interaction. Courage to me isn't the absence of fear. A lot of times we think about courage is over here and then there's fear. And when we have no fear, that's when we have courage. But nothing could be further from the truth. Courage is actually taking action even if we're afraid. In fact, I think courage is the result of taking action even when we're afraid. That's how we get confidence, by applying courage. So think about that. It's basically like you can be brave and afraid. And when I started talking to you guys, I mentioned, there's one thing I want you to remember, like fear doesn't have to stop you. Being brave and afraid is the definition of courage. And that's what's going to give you confidence. So you can't get the confidence unless you do something, even though you're afraid. So it's the taking action part that is going to deliver that confidence for you. So for me, those really truly are the top 10 tips, top 10 steps that you can take. And so let's have a little peek here. We'll come back into our Stream Alive session. And I'm going to ask you to share for me. And this is, of course, I'm an educator, so I want to know certain things. So far today, what is one takeaway for you? Something that is sticking out in your mind that was interesting, that resonated with you? Go ahead and pop it in our Zoom chat, and please let us know what has been one valuable piece of content for you today. Give everybody a few seconds to do that. I know it takes a little time to think. That's not just such an easy question. Okay, Sweetha, it's okay to make mistakes. You're more likely to remember them than anyone else. Being okay with making mistakes, giving grace to yourself, being inspired instead of comparing. Love all these. That it is okay to feel scared. Yes, 100%. Whatever you are experiencing, nerves, fear, it's all good. Just do it. Embracing fear. Going live with an audience of 0. Yes. Hey, great way to paraphrase that. Going live with an audience of 0. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yes, Tina. Fantastic. Yes, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that those are the things that are coming to mind. Yeah, thumbs up. Woohoo. Love it. Even though you don't love it, doesn't mean you can't be great at it. Yes. To access that fear part of the journey and just go on. There's always room for improvement. Wow, these are extremely valuable life lessons. By the way, the beautiful thing when you're running sessions with Stream Alive too is that as the person who runs the session, I actually get a summary of all of these. Like I will be able to access these and reflect back on them. Perhaps they can be turned into content for a post or other ways to engage with our audiences. So really nice feature within Stream Alive as well. Thank you so much for sharing that content. So I don't want you guys to walk away from today without a couple of verbal and nonverbal communication tips as well. I mentioned one already. It is beyond the scope of our time together to go deep into this, but there are 3 things that we can do right away to drastically change. One of them is the one I said before, which is learning to make eye contact with the lens rather than with this way. So if everybody, wherever you are, even if you don't have your camera on, it's okay. I just want you to cover your camera with your hand. Just put your hand in front of your camera lens so everybody's blocking it. Okay? And the reason I ask you to do that, and you can let go, the reason I ask you to do that is that's where you want to look when you want to talk directly to your audience. It's not a staring contest. Like in life, if we were together in a room and all I did was stare into your eyes, you would be uncomfortable, right? Like this is not the way that we talk to people 24/7. That's just not the way. It's natural to look away, to look here, but when you want to convey a message that's deep, that's powerful, that's strong, you want to connect, eye contact to the lens is key. The second thing is frame yourself up so that you can include part of your body. A lot of times my students join my classes and all I see is this, right? Like, and I usually see the ceiling fan or something weird and crazy like that. You know, those of us who have our camera on, we're framed up pretty nicely, but you want to come across with confidence, do away with a lot of headroom, right? You don't want to come on the scene and be like this. You can frame yourself up so that you only have a little tiny bit. You want some, but not a ton. And then also so that we can show our hands. Our hands from all of time are indicators of trust. It's subconscious from back in the day when people used to carry weapons and we needed to see their hands to make sure they weren't a threat to us. So today, showing our palms is an indicator of trust. So a lot of times when we're on camera, our hands are hidden. And that's okay if you're a participant. But if you're leading the session and you want to come across with confidence, make it so that we can see your hands occasionally, right? And it's not like you have to become a different person and this has to be your style over here, right? There's such a thing as too much. There's actually a neat little box here that gesturing, it doesn't become distracting, right? But using your hands to illustrate, to communicate, you'll see public speakers who are gifted in the craft, who are skilled in the craft, do gesturing. So making sure that you're doing that is important. The third thing is vocal variety, right? You all are familiar with the term monotone, speaking on only one note. I learned from a voice coach named Roger Love this analogy that really helps. Think about a landing and a staircase. Right? So if we're on the landing, that's the mid-tones of our voice, the place where we're pretty comfortable, just natural. We need to go up those stairs to highlight key points. If I'm sharing with you some great news, wow, my physical therapist said that I'm cured and I no longer need physical therapy. My energy goes up, right? I'm starting physical therapy tomorrow for my ankle injury. But if she were to say that and I'm sharing good news, I go up. Now, if I had to share bad news or emphasize a strong point, unfortunately, I had a major fall down the stairs and I hurt my ankle. Right? That's coming down the stairs. So we want to have strong vocal variety. We want to be able to, in times of high energy, emphasis, joy, happiness, go up the stairs, but we can't stay there a lot, right? That gets difficult to listen to. When we want to emphasize key points, we go lower into our chest to speak, and we're slowing it down. We might pause a bit more. But if we stay on the landing, that's going to come across as boring. So we want to make sure that we have vocal variety that fits the style of the message, that fits the content, that matches the energy level that we're trying to convey. So those are the 3 verbal and nonverbal tips that I wanted to also share with you today that you're walking away from with that content. So Roger Love, yes, he did work with famous people. He did work with famous people, Lux. So I don't know which famous people, but perhaps that is a good one. Yes, fantastic. So we've spent a good amount of time talking about solutions. So I hope that today has been helpful. I do want to share with you lots of ways that you can connect with me. You may not want to connect with me with all of these things, but the first is the first QR code is, so you can take a screenshot of this and do some of these later. They're labeled to help you. My website is the yellow one. Then I'm also running a course for adjunct professors and educators starting in August. So if you'd like more information about that, it is a live virtual course. That's the blue one. I'm running a contest to win a free seat to that academy in August, and that's the green one. Then if you like the production and things that I do here, I do use a tool called Ecamm. There is a price for that. It's an annual, it's not a free tool, and it is Mac only, but my affiliate link is there if you're interested in a 15% discount or want to chat more about it. If you'd like to sign up for my newsletter to get teaching tips, education tips, that's the yellow one. It's monthly. And then I don't need to share this, I'm sure, with this group, but this is also my Stream Alive link for anyone who's interested in learning more about Stream Alive, but this is already a Stream Alive crew. So I wanted to share ways that you can, and the LinkedIn is there. When you go to my website, there are also a couple of free gifts. One is a calming meditation and affirmation for confidence. So if you go to my website, then a little pop-up screen comes up. One is a list of activities you can do with an audience, and the second is an audio, also the option of a video file to a calming meditation. So if that's something that you're interested in, a couple of free gifts for you are available there. And then I will close out there officially with those free gifts for you and say thank you for your time. I truly and sincerely hope that you have taken away at least one important action step that you can take to have more confidence. Just remember that it's a journey, right? There's no workshop you're going to attend and suddenly your fear is gone, or you're absolutely rocking it in 1 hour. But it's a progression. It's taking that next step. It's being able to be more confident than you were an hour ago and working on it. And so I'm here to help. If connecting with me on LinkedIn is a great place to do that. And you can always send me questions or messages or anything like that. But I appreciate everyone's participation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tatiana. That was a masterclass, I think, in gaining confidence to be on camera, presenting, meeting. I think I've got a lot of work to do myself. Like most of the fears that people mentioned definitely is something I suffer from, something to work on.
Thank you for
everyone
sharing
else.
that, Peter.
Welcome. Thank you everyone for joining. If you liked some of the interactions that you saw Tatiana run, you can find out more by going to streamalive.com and seeing all the other types of audience interactions, polls, word clouds, spinner wheels, all sorts. We've got it there. Helps you make your session come alive. And with that, unless there's any questions that people wanted to ask before we wrap things up, you can put it in the chats. And if not, I wish you all a very good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, we'll connect more so on LinkedIn. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Bye.
much. Thank you.